About 3 months ago, I got a comment on one of my videos about the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, asking me my initial thoughts on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. Try saying that fast. I said in a roundabout way that I wasn't particularly interested in the 6K Pro and I would be sticking with my 4K. But I forgot that I had GAS, Gear Acquisition Syndrome, and I want all the cameras. So late one night, against my better judgment, I purchased a Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. In this video, I'm going to unbox the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro, and in a veiled attempt at justifying this purchase to myself, I'm going to give my initial impressions on this camera. So, what do you actually get in the box? Well, as it turns out, not a great deal. You get this welcome booklet with a little thank you for buying the camera note and instructions on how to download the manual. You get this Blackmagic design sticker. You get a DaVinci Resolve 17 Studio activation key. You get the new NPF Sony style battery. You get a camera strap, which I'm never going to use, and you don't get that in the 4K box if I remember correctly. You get a power adapter so you can plug your camera into the mains, and you get a selection of plug socket adapter thingies. Remember to pick the right one for your country. And last but not least, you obviously get the camera in the box. You'd be pretty disappointed if you didn't get your camera in the box. So the first thing you notice about this camera when you take it out of the box is just how big it is compared to the Blackmagic 4K. I don't have a 6K to compare it with, but I'm guessing it's bigger than that as well. That's probably down to the inclusion of the ND filters in this front kind of lens mount area. And then there's the new batteries, the MPL or MPL, MLP, you know, the new Sony batteries. So there's a bit of a bigger hand grip. It actually feels quite nice, the hand grip. It's comfortable. It's got this kind of extra nodule on the back here that sticks out a bit more, so your thumb is fitting in there quite nice and comfortable. I've got big hands anyway, as you can probably see. Look at that, it's bigger than my head, my hand. But yeah, it feels really comfortable to me, although it does feel big. It feels much bigger than a DSLR, bigger than a 5D or a Nikon D810, D850, whatever. So it's big, in other words, very big, but not uncomfortable and not unnice. Is unnice a word? It's not. And then the next thing that you notice after that is the addition of this flip out screen. It feels quite nice, it feels quite firm. It probably feels a little bit too firm at the moment. I'm hoping it'll kind of wear in a little bit, be a little bit more flexible because it's a bit stiff at the moment. Obviously you don't want it too loose and flopping around there. No one wants a floppy screen. It's a nice addition, it's a nice angle. You can do it at almost 90 degrees. So yeah, if you're filming low angles or just filming normal angles really, and you're kind of looking down at the camera, then it's a good addition to have. My only worry about it is it seems to be constructed kind of quite flimsily. Is that the right word? If you look at the back of it, you can actually see the ribbon going from the camera to the screen. It looks a little bit vulnerable. It looks like you could snag that easily and rip it. If you see the back of a Sony camera, the way that they have the flip screen, that ribbon is actually kind of tucked away in kind of metal behind the mechanism. I remember the, what was it, Nikon D750 had a similar thing where the ribbon was exposed. Now, I don't know any stories about them getting snagged, but I remember the reviewers at the time pointing that out as it could be a problem.
And you can still see the cable, or you can just cut the cable there if you're really pissed off with your friend.
And this ribbon, it does feel kind of brittle, like you know, you could snag it, you could break it. Hopefully not, obviously, but just something to think of. I mean, Blackmagic produced these cameras at such a reasonable price range that there are going to be a few little kind of, not cutting corners, but you know, they're going to have to make compromises, aren't they? And at the end of the day, the most important thing is the image quality coming out of these things. It's not necessarily the build quality, and it doesn't feel cheap in any way. It looks a little bit vulnerable. That's what I'd say. The screen is 1500 nits as opposed to the one on the 4K and the 6K, which is 500 nits. So it's 2/3 brighter. If you've used an Atomos Ninja 5, that's about 1000 nits of brightness. I believe that like MacBooks, or at least the older ones, were 400 nits, so you can sort of give yourself a kind of an idea of how bright it is. Proper outdoor field monitors though, they're about 2000 to 4000 nits for being able to be seen in kind of complete daylight, very bright conditions. One of the main reasons why you might want to consider picking up this camera is the addition of the internal NDs. I've got to say that's a great feature for me. It's definitely one of the main reasons why I picked up this camera. I really hate having to fiddle about with variable ND filters on the end of the lenses. It's such a pain. Step up rings, step down rings, all that messing around. Every time you try and take one off, touching it, getting a smudge on there, having to clean it. I don't like it one bit. It's much better having an internal ND. The internal NDs on this camera, they go from 2 to 6 stops, so it's 2, 4, 6. That might not seem like an awful lot, especially considering compared to something like the Canon C70, which has got 1 to 9 stops of ND built into it. But it is exactly the same as the Alexa Mini has, and in exactly the same configuration, 2, 4, 6 stops of ND. I was curious about how Blackmagic have implemented that. Is there a filter wheel in there? Are they stacking it? Is there actually 3 filters, all of 2 stops of ND? So you can get the 2, stack it 4, stack it 6? Or is it that they're just a 2, a 4 and a 6 and they rotate them in and out? I had a look in there, messing about with it. I can't really tell. It's a bit complicated what's going on. There seems to be one coming down from the top and one coming up from the bottom sometimes. There's some element of stacking, but I really just can't work it out. But yeah, there'll be more videos like this, more videos about Blackmagic cameras, more videos about filmmaking in general, that sort of thing. That's what I'm into. So yeah, anyway, thanks for getting this far. Some dust here floating around. Wonder if you can see that on the video. Cheers.